Hi everyone, it's Paul Tilley and welcome back. This is PR2170, Project Management, and in this unit we're looking at the final unit, Unit 7, Project Termination. In this unit we will identify the types of project closure, understand the challenges of closing a project, we're going to explain the importance of project audits, and we're going to look at project retrospectives to obtain lessons learned, and we're also going to look at advising and conducting performance reviews of project members. You'll find this material in Module 7 of the course and Chapter 14 of the textbook. It's over. All projects will naturally come to an end. But how many project participants really get excited about doing the stuff that needs to be done when a project does come to an end? Realistically, what the project was set to deliver is complete, the ownership's transferred, and we generally want to wash our hands of it. Everybody is really turning their attention to the next big project. But carefully managing project closure is important because it is the clue up for the project and ensures that we take lessons learned and we use them to develop our skills for our next project. Observation tells us that organizations that manage project closures properly do a much better job at prospering. Those who don't tend to have projects drag on forever, and they tend to repeat the same mistakes over and over again. Closing out a project includes a daunting number of tasks. Today, we want to expand and talk about those jobs that the project manager would be responsible for doing. First, let's take a look at the various types of projects. First, we have what's called the normal project. The normal project, as you suspect, as the name implies, is the most common circumstance. It's when the project closes because it's completed. So for many development projects, the end involves handing off the final design, the final completed project to its new owners. We also have premature project closure. That occurs when a project might be completed early, or some parts of the project might get eliminated, or something of the like, where the timeline is sped up. On the other end of the spectrum, we have the perpetual project, and some projects just never seem to end. And the major characteristic of this kind of project is that there's constantly add-ons. And this really suggests that the project wasn't very well conceived to start with. Another type of project is a failed project, and as the name implies, it's a project that fails. And they usually are easy to identify because it was never really completed. Many projects fail because of circumstances beyond the control of the project team, so we don't want to be blaming the wrong people. Another type of project closure is when we have a changing priority. Organization priorities change all the time. For example, during the 50s, Canada sought to build a high-performance interceptor, the Avro Arrow. And because of the rising costs and the view that manned interceptors would become obsolete, the Arrow project was canceled. The priorities changed. The project was decided, it was decided that the project shouldn't exist anymore, and effectively, it was canceled. In order to get successful project termination, we need to think about how can we make the maximum success go on here. So complete project success is proven to be very elusive. And 2.5% of companies are able to successfully complete 100% of their projects. It's very, very small. With that in mind, much research has been done pinpointing what the essential ingredients are for a successful project. Consider the following points. We should ensure that we hire the right people in order to make sure the project is well managed. The role of project manager is critical to assuring project success. The project manager organizes, executes, monitors, and completes the project. While a project manager must have the necessary technical and soft skills to perform the responsibilities, he or she should also have the ability to work well as a team. It's important, too, to maintain effective communication. Effective communication is essential to increase workplace productivity. Effective communication should be established through the communication and collaborative software that's available to allow that information is relayed and the project is kept on track through that. We should also set attainable goals and make sure those goals are measurable. Project goals had to be set, and the project needs to follow those goals. Every decision made and every action taken should be towards accomplishing those goals. We also need to create a realistic budget. This is challenging too because budgets change. A project budget must cover all the necessary expenses of the project, and while it should be realistic, it should also cover the extra expenses that organizations may have to bear due to threats that may occur unexpectedly. We should also allocate resources to meet the project requirements. Make sure there's enough put into it. Resources include human resources and non-human resources like tools, conference rooms, laptops, all these sorts of things. These resources should be allocated properly in order to ensure that the project has the best chance of succeeding. Carry out frequent risk management practices. And so, during the lifetime of a project, risks can occur at any time. Longer the project, higher the risk. It's essential that you manage risk to have a successful project. Make sure you carry frequent risk management practices before you move on to the next step. Implement successful talent management. Skills are important. The project team is really going to be important, and their skills that they bring is going to be really important to making sure that we can get this project through on time, on budget. Stakeholder satisfaction needs to be considered seriously. If the buyer that you're building this project, doing this project for, feels that they're not satisfied, that's not going to be helpful. So it's important to identify the stakeholders and what their expectations are up front and make sure they're met. The major challenge for project management and team members are over when the project comes to a conclusion. Getting the project manager and project participants to put the final rep to make it over is a bit of a challenge. Clue-up work is mundane, nobody likes it, but it's critical. So the project manager's challenge is to keep the project team focused on remaining project activities and deliver them to the customer until the project is complete. Communicating a closure or review plan and schedule early allows the project team to more easily bring closure to the project. Project closure usually includes things like getting delivery acceptance from the customer, shutting down resources, reallocating resources, reassigning project team members, closing accounts, getting the bills paid, delivering the project to the customer, and creating a final report. If we break it down into what are the three major deliverables, well, if you think about a project, the wrap-up is certainly the key deliverable here. Other activities include things like closing accounts, paying bills, reassigning equipment, and the like. Checklists are used extensively to ensure that tasks are not over. In many organizations, the majority of closing tasks are largely done by the project office in coordination with the project manager. The final written report is usually assigned to one person in the office who assembles input from all of the stakeholders. In smaller organizations and projects, the closure activities are left to the project manager and the team. The second major deliverable includes project audit. And the project audit serves as a post-project review, and it really judges how successful the project was. These include a casual analysis, retrospectives, and an identification of lessons learned. These post-project reviews should be held with the team, key stakeholders to catch missing issues. Third element in terms of project closure is evaluating performance management. We need to evaluate things like the teams, the individual team members, the project manager's performance, the vendors, and the customer may provide some other external input. Evaluation of major players provides important information to the future. So here we have an example of a project wrap-up checklist. So if we look at this schedule, you can see the various components in it in terms of the task, the team, has the team work's been accepted, have the team been newly reassigned, performance reviews of the people that work for the project. These sorts of things are what you would find in this project wrap-up checklist. This project checklist could effectively be enlarged into what's called a project audit, which is really a systematic, often iterative activity that examines the project to identify and determine any issues, concerns, challenges, and opportunities that were raised during the project. We also find out why those were raised. We need to develop recommendations based on that and learnings from it. So audits benefit the program or project by providing a status update and recommending actions. Really, depending on the scope of the audit, should look at management, status, quality, interferences of the program or project. In developing the scope of the organization, should consider size, complexity, results of previous audits, frequency of audits, stakeholder interest, and the level of change. If we look at the audit process in particular, we say, okay, what needs to happen for an audit to occur? Well, first of all, we need to initiate the audit, and this involves getting the right people in place to be able to do the audit. And then we need to be able to select the various criteria that we're going to use, things like how much, how many, who. So we develop checklists that include questions regarding success criteria. Specifically, they kind of look for input into what worked well, what didn't work so well. We need to develop questionnaires. Consider developing an audit questionnaire that help assess people's thoughts on the project. And we can host a meeting, get the questionnaire done, bring people in, sit down, have a face-to-face discussion on how the project went. And here, for example, I have a sample questionnaire that you would use as part of the audit. And you'll see the various questions there dealing with the 5 W's: who, what, where, when, and how. Step 3, the reporting phase. We need to be able to take the audit through and then report it back to the stakeholders. The report needs to capture changes and lessons learned. Report serves as a training instrument, project managers and for future projects. They can be tailored to the specific project or the organizational environment. In order to evaluate performances, we look at the various people involved, including managers of the project team. And we got to ask ourselves, what are some of the basic guidelines? Well, we need to think about the approach that yields the most valuable information. What would do that? We need to avoid drawing comparisons with other team members. If we're critical, we need to focus on the solution as opposed to the problem. So that's a quick summary of that unit. I hope you found it interesting. Thanks for listening.